the title to the message is something that when you first looked at the sheet, if you haven't, you pick up a sheet and look at it beside you, the scripture lesson. The top of the sheet asks this question: can moms be perfect? And so I'm only going to ask this question to moms. I don't want anybody else to answer, but moms, I'm going to ask you, just answer me loud and clear. Are you a perfect mom? Okay, it's exactly what I expected to hear. And if you answer differently than that, I do want to meet you after service, because we need to get you to write a book and do something else. There are no perfect moms. But here's what I want you to do is turn to somebody near you, and I want you to listen carefully, and I want you to tell them this. But God thinks I am perfect for my children. Can you do that? But God thinks I am perfect for my children. Tell the person near you. Tell someone around you. See, there are no perfect moms, but God makes no mistakes. And whether you're a biological mom, a stepmom, or an adoptive mom, understand this, that God thinks you are perfect for your children. Doesn't mean you are perfect in the sense you never make mistakes, but you are the mom they need. You're the mom they've needed. And so I want as we go into this lesson today, I want that to keep that in your mind, fresh up in your mind. And because I believe that there's a tendency the Bible tells us clearly that Satan is, one of the things that he does is that he whispers lies to us. He's the father of all lies. He whispers lies to us and tells us things about us that are not true. And one of the things that he tries to do is the very things that are most important in our lives, he tries to get us to believe untruth about those things. And so one of the things I think he does for moms is to tell them that they're a terrible mom, to tell them that they are that they're ruining their children, to tell them that they are making huge mistakes, and that their children are better off with somebody else. And I want to tell you that if God thought your children would be better off with someone else, that's where they would be. And that's who they'd be with. Okay? So God believes that you are the best person, that you are the perfect person to be the mom of the children that you have. So if we don't get anything else across today, I want you to leave today with that understanding and that concept. God thinks I am the perfect mother for my children. I want you to walk away today believing that. Now, if you look at the passage of Scripture that we're going to look at, some of you want to leave already. You're going, we're going to look at Proverbs 31, woman here. I mean, isn't this like the perfect person, the person who gets everything right and does everything right and really is like a perfect woman? Well, she certainly is portrayed as a woman of excellence. That's what is called here. She's a woman of excellence and a woman who certainly does get a whole lot of things right. Just going into it, as I reflected over this quite a bit over this past week, one of the things that kept coming to my mind was there were two aspects of this woman's life that kind of stood out to me. And they're aspects that I think we would do well to kind of look at. And one is that in many ways, how she operated in life, to me, was reflective of kind of the spirit or attitude that Jesus operated with in life. And probably one of the best ways that I could say that, she accomplished a whole lot, but it doesn't appear as though that she was a person who was in a hurry, who was frenetic about it, who was just going after it like crazy. It appears as though she was a person who had gotten hold of the idea of management, self-management, and managing of other things and other people, and she did it with grace and dignity, not out of a sense of pressure and out of a sense of rush and hurry, but there was a pacing to this. There seems to be a pacing as I go through. Now, and so what I want to do is help you to think in terms of this. Number one, I think the more we learn about Jesus, and this is true, the things I'm going to say here are true for all of us, but I'm particularly focusing on moms. The more that we learn and understand about Jesus and how he thought, how he functioned, how he interacted, and how the things that he believed, the more like Christ we will be. That's certainly true. The other is that if we can learn to not be a driven person, but to be a person who lives out of a sense of God's calling and a sense of awareness around us and pace ourselves appropriately. I believe pacing is a very unused word, too unused in our culture today, to learn to pace ourselves. It seems as though this person paced themselves. It seems as though to me that Jesus as he lived his life, he paced himself. And he responded to the surroundings all around him, and sometimes it was chaotic. But he never became chaotic. And I'm not saying that it's possible for you to never become chaotic yourself. But the more we learn about who Jesus was and how he operated, the more we learn to pace ourselves, I think that we'll actually see that we'll accomplish more with our lives. Let's just say a prayer. Lord, I lift up the moms to you right now, and I thank you for each one again. They are very special people. And I would ask that today, even though they might feel challenged by a few things that are spoken here, especially as we look at this example of this woman of excellence, I would pray, Lord, that most importantly, that they would feel encouraged and they would feel loved, and that they would leave here believing from their toes to the top of their head that you believe they are the perfect mom for their children, and that you will help them, maybe never be perfect, but help them to do the best job that's possible for them to do in the challenge of raising the children you've given them, or loving the adult children that they have in their lives, wherever they are in whatever season or stage or phase that they are. And so, Lord, we pray that these words would be words of, yes, challenge, but more often than not, words of encouragement, that they would truly feel your favor, your love, and your smile upon them today. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. I'm going to begin just at the top of this scripture lesson. I'm not going to read the memory verse to you because it's in the flow of this, and so we'll come to it as we go. But it's a very important verse particularly for anybody to memorize, but I think in particular this is addressing a woman, for a woman to remember and understand. The scripture lesson starts with this, verse 10 of Proverbs 31. It says, an excellent woman, and I have this in the Amplified, so it's kind of going to be explained as it goes, even from the translation or from the Amplified version. An excellent woman, one who is spiritual, another woman who is connected to God, has a relationship with God, a woman who is capable, who is intelligent, and virtuous. Now, those are all big words, and they're all important words, and I can't take the time to break them all down, or we wouldn't get through what we're going through. But if you think about it, you say, what is a woman of excellence? This is what the Amplified is saying this word bears out. This word of excellence, it bears these thoughts, these concepts out. It's one who is spiritually connected to God, who is a capable person, who is intelligent and virtuous. Now, who is he, speaking of the man here, who is he? Who is the fortunate man, we could even say here, who can find her? Her value, and I would just like for you, women, if you particular, and men, it wouldn't hurt for you to underline too, because so remember the value of your wife. Her value, underline that word, her value is more precious than jewels. Her worth, please underline that too if you would, is far above rubies or pearls. The heart of her husband trusts in her. This is someone who's trustworthy, with secure confidence, the Amplified says, and he will have no lack of gain. In other words, this person will not continually be causing his world to be set back. It will help it move forward. And so this is a person who doesn't, I guess what you call, set life back for herself or for the family, but she helps move it forward. She comforts, encourages, and does him only good and not evil all the days of her life. Now, what I would like to say is, because this is a chance for me to kind of talk to the men just a moment here, that again, here's what I want to say. The wife that you are married to today, no matter what your history is or where you've been or what thing, the wife you're married to today is the woman that God believes is perfect for you. And so I want to encourage you I want to encourage you to understand and value her for who she is. To understand the value of her is greater than all the riches of the world. Her worth is greater than the great riches of the world as well. Anything that you can think of. In that time period, they talked a lot about rubies, pearls, and precious jewels. You could talk about, a house in Key Largo, or a house, someplace else, or whatever, having a personal jet, or whatever you might think is something of great worth. She's worth far more than that. If you were a billionaire, she's worth far more than that. And so here's a question, just a simple question. I'm not going to ask you if I raise your hand. I'm not going to be asking you to give any testimonies. But here's a simple question I want to ask you. Does your wife believe that you value her more than anything else except for God? Does your wife believe that you value her more than your retirement fund? Not against the retirement fund, okay? We're talking about priorities here. That you value her more than your Learjet, or I start naming things that I'm gonna hit something somebody is their hobby, so I'm not gonna name anymore. What is it that your wife would say? My husband values me more than that or this and anything outside of his relationship with God. I know I'm the most valuable component of his life. Does she believe that? If she doesn't believe that, if you're unsure, then you know what your job is for this next year. Because you can't do it in a day and you can't do it in a week. You know what your job is. Your job is to help her come to know and believe that she's the most valuable person in your life, human being in your life. Now, here, a word to women. And I will tell you guys, if you do that, just what I'm going to say to women is a whole lot easier for them to do. It almost comes natural for them to do. And I'm going to give you a little secret, women. I'm going to tell you something you may know already. You probably already could say this. At the heart of most men, no matter how big and burly we are, no matter how tough we seem, we're just little kids at heart that are kind of like big babies. We're kind of big, overgrown babies. Now, I know some of you guys are going, I don't like this sermon already. In fact, I don't even like Rod. I don't like this sermon. The truth is, listen, at least in most households, when a man gets sick with a little something, he's just a mess. And his wife's got to, run errand, do all this stuff, go get this, go get that, go take, and I know there's exceptions. I know some of you guys are tougher nails. You never, you don't have no weakness. But most of us are big babies at heart. We are. And even though we talk about women being emotional, most men are super sensitive. Super sensitive. You can insult a man very easily. You can insult a man way easier than you can a woman. I can just tell you, I could leave here and in 10 minutes I could have some man giving me the finger and doing something else just by something I said to him. I could probably do it sitting right here with some of you guys, I could probably do it right here. I wouldn't have to leave the church. But I can tell you, there are certain things you can say to a man that he'll come unglued on you, man. He'll just unravel right in front of you, Guys aren't nearly as tough as they like to act like they are. So I'm saying all that to say this. This is so important, women. I promise you, as a mom, as a wife, it says she comforts. This is talking about her husband. She comforts him. Isn't this funny that the Bible often tells us things that we just overlook? Because we're thinking, well, I need to comfort my wife. She's such an emotional wreck. No, the guys are the ones who often need comforting. Their boss said something to them. Their employee didn't do what they just come home, they're a wreck, You've got to comfort them, okay? You need to comfort your husband. Comfort him. And believe it or not, he needs encouragement. He needs encouragement. Men need encouragement. And you say, well, what would encourage him? You really may not want to ask that question because there are several answers, but obviously physical relationship encourages a man greatly, okay? I will say that. But there's a whole lot more words of affirmation. Words of affirmation say, well, if you just do something worth affirming, okay? That's where I'm saying, value your wife, guys. Value her and demonstrate the worth you believe in her. It allows her to be able to respond to you in encouragement and comfort. She does him only good. I mean, she doesn't take all your money and go spend it someplace. And she doesn't, run your debt up. She doesn't do this. She doesn't do the other. She doesn't talk about you behind your back. She doesn't, whatever you go on. She comforts and encourages and does him only good, not evil all the days of her life. Doesn't talk bad about him to her children. You see, these are in some ways simple things, but they are vitally important to what makes a family work well. And the family starts with a husband and a wife. So husbands, what value does your wife believe she is to you? Wives, can you find it within yourself to encourage and comfort your husband emotionally, physically, and with words, which kind of encompasses everything? Can you brag on him? Vanjie and I have been married almost 37 years. We're coming up on 37 years. And thank you. Anyway, thank you. She gets all the credit for it. I think she went to kids' church this morning. So, but this has been kind of with our older kids when they were at home. My younger brother Randy, the one that has had the front, he's kind of the clown of our family. But sometimes, I try to be funny too. And you guys know that. And sometimes you appease me and laugh at something, but most of the time you're like, what is he talking about? Anyway, so I try to be funny. Well, sometimes I would say something that was funny, and my kids would laugh. I'm talking about Jeff and Crystal, my older kids. They would laugh, and laugh really hard, laugh out loud. And Vanjie would be laughing too. And they would go, look, Mom's like, because she didn't always see humor in my jokes. So she didn't, and they're not because they were bad, but just because, it was a little thing. And so they would say, Mom, you're laughing at that joke. You're laughing. She goes, no, I'm laughing because you guys are laughing. She never would admit she was laughing because I was funny. So I don't know today if it's, so she never has one to admit that I'm funny. Now I'm okay with that. I can tell that publicly. But it was like, that kind of came like one of those things where sometimes it's hard for us as a husband or wife to admit something about our spouse, And so, I think she didn't want to encourage me, is really what it was. She didn't want to encourage me down the road of trying to be a jokester all the time, and it's really at the core of it. But what I would like to say is, if you find it difficult to encourage your spouse in some way, just think about this. And that is, who else in their world is encouraging them? They may not be getting encouragement very many other places. You may be one of the only voices that brings encouragement to them. So think about being that voice of encouragement, speaking into their life. Now, coming back to this woman, verse 13, she looks for wool and flax and works with willing hands and delight. Let me just say, there's some aspects of this that are cultural. I know you're not going to be doing some of the specific things that she did because of the cultural differences, but you can still, I think, follow along. I'm not going to try to break it down and explain every piece of that, okay? But here's what I want to point out, particularly in verse 13. And works with willing hands in delight. Now that really stood out to me, kind of in bold print. She's willing to work hard. She's a person who works hard. And I don't know how it is around your house, but I will have to tell you, hands down, around the household, Vanjie's by far the hardest worker in our household. I can promise you that. She's just outdoes us all, without a doubt. But it's interesting to me that this not only says she works hard, but she works with willing hands in what's the word? Delight. Delight. And attitude is huge. Attitude is huge. You think about it, you go to work even. If you go, man, I gotta make this 8 hours somehow. I gotta figure out how to survive this. If that's the attitude you go in with it, it's gonna be a long day. It's gonna be a hard day. But if you have a good attitude, it's amazing that whatever you're doing seems easier to do. Somehow this woman grasped the concept. Life is tough. I'm going to work hard. She's working hard, but she learned to delight. She did it with delight. And I will say this, the attitude that you approach life, this is true for all of us, but it's certainly true for moms too. The attitude that you approach life with, the attitude that you approach your task with, makes all the difference in how hard it gets, or whether it's just hard work that has to be done, but can be done with some level of delight. Goes on to verse 14, she's like the merchant ships, abounding with treasure. She brings her households food from far away. In other words, her work brings gain. She's like a vessel, a merchant ship coming in with all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of good things that come to the family through what she does and how she goes about things. Her work brings gain. Verse 15, she arises while it is still night, gives food to her household, and assigns tasks to her maids. And you say, I don't have any maids. I don't have any maids. Okay, that's true. Again, there's some cultural differences here, okay? You also you don't have to grind your wheat and some other things like that too, okay? So there's a lot of differences here. You don't have to make everything you make from scratch. So there are a lot of differences in all this, okay? So you have to make sure of that. But here's how I took verse 15, where she rises while it's still night, gives food to her household, assigns her tasks to her maids. This woman knows how to take care of things. She knows how to take care of business. She knows how to get things done. And so rather than say, well, wonder what's going to happen next, she just takes care of business. She's a person who takes care of business. And this concept is one that is, in this whole series we've been doing about maturing emotionally, maturing relationally. Right now we're in maturing of our mind piece of it, except for Mother's Day. One of the things that I feel like God has been speaking to me is about this issue of taking care of business. If something's on your mind, if something's bothering you, take care of it. Quit letting it bother you. Quit letting it eat you up. Quit giving it extra space. Take care of it. It's that concept of eat the frog first. I met somebody for breakfast after I'd said that. And I don't see him here this morning, or I'd call him by name. But anyway, I met somebody for breakfast after that. And as we were leaving, departing ways, he said to me, he said, so you went ahead and ate the frog first today. And so, in other words, I was dreading meeting him or something, so I'd go ahead and meet him, get it over with. That wasn't the case. But whatever it is, it's the biggest challenge in your life, the biggest obstacle, the thing you dread most, face it, take care of it, and your life will be simpler, and it'll be happier. If you keep having this dread out here, this thing I'm dreading, taking care of, go ahead and take care of it. This woman, she went ahead and faced the day early, got things in order, and got on top of the day rather than letting the day get on top of her. Very, very significant. Verse 16, she considers a field before she buys or accepts it, expanding her business prudently. With her profit, she plants fruitful vines in her vineyard. And I just say on this, I'm not saying you need to go out and start buying real estate and doing stuff like that. I'm just simply saying that what she knew how to do, she worked smart. She worked smart. She was profitable with what she did, and she used her thinking, and she put it to good use. She worked smart. Verse 17, she equips herself with strength. This is spiritual, mental, physical fitness for her God-given task, and makes her arms strong. So if you are going to the gym and your husband's saying you spend too much time at the gym, say, hey, listen, let me just quote you this verse. And it says here in Proverbs 31, verse 17, that she equips herself with strength and she makes her arms strong. So she was into toning her arms as well, But here's what I read into this as I was going through. She takes care of herself. Moms, I'm going to tell you, the number one thing, this may be actually the hardest thing for you to do. Take care of yourself. If you've got little ones, I say this, it's hard to go to the bathroom. And it's hard to, I mean, there have been times, whenever, I've actually walked in the bathroom, had never heard anyone, and I'm not a mom, I'm just a dad. So I just walked in my bathroom, off of the bedroom, walked in the bathroom, closed the door, and no sooner than that door had latched, someone was going, Dad, 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 Dad. Like, this is mom's world here, and it's like you can't, it's like there's a magnet somehow goes, they disappeared on me. I got to go find them, where did they go? And they go straight for the bathroom, to find you. So you can't, and so it's hard to get a minute for yourself. When years and years ago, I would have said, now look, when you have a little kid at home and they take a nap, that's a good time to get everything done. Well, I raised little ones in the second tier. Our first kids, they were actually 3 and 5 when we adopted them. And so they were already up and running, even kind of past the nap stage almost. So we didn't do much. But with Hunter and Skylar, it was my job to be with them that day, and they took a nap, I didn't think, I wonder what I could get done while they're napping. I'm thinking, I better get a nap right now, or it's over. It's like I'm thinking, moms, if you got a kid that teaches a nap, take it too. You better take one while you can. Take care of yourself, And so the deal is, if you don't take care of yourself, unfortunately, guys, Vanjie can tell you, there's a couple time periods in our life where I've really preached to her, and I don't like to do that at home, but I really seriously preached to her about getting more sleep. Because I do feel like sleep is vital to our health and everything else, our immune system. And so sometimes I just felt like she was cutting off too much at the late side and the early side. And I would just preach, I would just say, almost like demand, you have got to get some more sleep. I'm almost going to insist that you go to bed at this time and don't get up until this time. Even if you're awake, stay in bed till this time. Because it's really easy, moms, just to really work yourself to the point to where you're almost no good for anything. You get yourself worn down physically, emotionally. Look what it says here. It says she equips herself with strength. Look what the Amplified defines that strength as: spiritual, mental, and physical fitness. You have to keep yourself spiritually, mentally, and physically fit, or you're not much good to your kids. So I'm going to say, Mom, don't become a selfish person who just only looks out for your own good and that's it. But make sure that you allow time for yourself. Make sure that you take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, and your spiritual health. Make sure you invest yourself in that. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself, not doing such a hot job as mom. And you'll wear the martyr robe, with blood stains all over it, and going, I do this for you and I do this for you. Nobody appreciates anything. And blah, 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 blah. Now, I know no mom here has ever done that. But it's real easy to fall into if you're not careful. Take care of yourself. Verse 18, she sees that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out, but it burns continually through the night. She's prepared for whatever lies ahead. Now, here's how I'm going to interpret this. I'm not, I don't believe that God, just because of everything else that he says, that he's glorifying you not getting any sleep. He's not glorifying that. He's simply saying this person right here was prepared for kind of anything. And sometimes I don't know if you ever had this happen or not. Your kid come in your bedroom and they're standing there and they finally get you awake and they go, I don't feel very good. And stand right there in your bedroom and go, like, the bathroom's like right there. Now we don't even have the luxury of going, let's just flush it down the toilet and, give you a little something and go back to bed. It's like we have this mess. This is like the night's over. Now, if you've ever had that, something like that, you understand, there are times you're not going to get a regular night's sleep. Well, this lady was ready for that. She was okay with that. That happens. What you don't want, though, is it to be an every night occasion, okay? And so here's how I basically look at verse 18. It says, she sees that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out, but it burns continually through the night. She's prepared for whatever lies ahead, is what the paraphrase or the Amplified states of this. And it basically, she stays on top of things. Have you ever felt like everything's on top of you? Like a life, your kids, your family, your money, you're just down, and it's just all just trumps all over you. Have you ever felt that? Well, someone said one time, well, I just feel like I'm under all these circumstances. and I think it was maybe Rick Warren I heard say this. He said, well, what are you doing under your circumstances? Get on top of them, you know? And I think what this woman did was try to stay on top of things. Now, you can't always do that, and it's not 100%, but the more we stay on top of things, the less we find ourselves under the circumstances of life. And I believe that's what she did, was she endeavored to stay on top of things. Hard sometimes, hard. And verse 19 kind of reiterates that again. She's just always ready. She's always making good use of time. Verse 20 says, she opens and extends her hand to the poor, and she reaches out her filled hands to the needy. I think what I would take away from that is she's not a selfish person. You know, sometimes moms, you can go so wrapped up in your world, your kids, you're this, you're that, you're the other, that we can become very self-centered. We can only see what's good for our kids. We can't see what's good for anybody else or anybody else's kids. We don't look to the well-being of other people. God has given, most of us here have enough for ourselves and a little bit for someone else. And so what God has allowed us to do is to be able to take care of our families and do well with that and take care of them in a good fashion for most cases and still be able to do something to help others. What that does is helps us to not be selfish and self-centered. You know, we have some moms in here, and I don't have any permission to use their names, but we have some moms, and it could be a whole lot of moms, but there's a few in particular that have done an excellent job of getting their children engaged in doing good things for other people. Not just they themselves doing this, but getting their kids involved in doing that. And I'll tell you, that really, that impresses me deeply because that is so powerful. You know, it's not a guarantee your kids will get the idea of generosity or compassion, but it gives it a good fighting chance. So I want to say thank you to those moms. And I believe the payday for that will be tremendous in your kids' lives, but also what you reap yourself from that. So thanks, moms that I've seen doing that. Some very, very good job at that. Thank you. And I would say, you know, if you want to know who it is, you can get lessons from them. I'll get their permission to tell you, okay? But I don't have their permission right now. Verse 21 in the backside of your sheet. She does not fear the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in expensive scarlet wool. She makes for herself coverlets, cushions, and rugs of tapestry. Her clothing is linen, pure and fine, and purple wool. She makes sure her household is well taken care of, in other words. Her kids, people aren't feeling sorry for her kids. They're not looking at it and going, man, I tell you, they just, she takes good care of her household. They look nice. They're taken care of. They're dressed well. And she makes sure of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. The next section, verse 23, her husband is known in the city's gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes fine linen garments and sells them and supplies sashes to the merchants. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and her position is strong and secure. I want you to notice this last phrase, and she smiles at the future. That makes me smile, just reading that phrase. Knowing that she and her family are prepared. See, her good reputation, the fact that she is a person of excellence, gives her family favor, gives her husband favor, gives her children favor. And I want to tell you, probably the most outstanding thing to me in that whole lineup of things it talks about that she does is her positive outlook. Her positive outlook. I honestly believe that kids long to see their moms smile. They long to hear their moms laugh. Most of us dads kind of we do that, and then sometimes she has to feel like she's the only parent in the house and get everybody calmed down, get everybody behave themselves. And so I know that happens too, Mom. So sometimes it's like sometimes I feel like moms can think, well, if I let my hair down and join in on all this craziness, who's going to be the adult in here? Somebody's got to be the adult. But the other side of that is this. Then it sometimes looks like that you're just the crab in the house, and that you're just always a spoil sport. And so I'm not saying, color on the walls with your husband and the kids. I'm not saying that, wear a water shoe, doing this on the walls. I'm not saying that, but what you can do is smile. I've got a good friend who's actually part of the church here. And it's funny because he doesn't have necessarily advanced education in some given area of any specialized area, especially as it relates to humanities and things like that. So, but he is works with people, is a student of people, and he says this: it bothers me when I see somebody that never smiles. And I thought, that's pretty deep for somebody who's not necessarily in the people business for a living or that kind of thing. That's pretty deep. It bothers me. Now, moms, life is tough, and your job is huge. And I know if you let your hair down too much, things can get out of hand real easily. But don't forget to smile. Don't forget to laugh sometimes. Don't be too stiff. Relax a little bit. Do something crazy with your kids every once in a while. Throw them off. I'm not sure that's going down so well. Or what? I'm not sure. Listen, I love you, moms. I do. And it's okay if you're offended by it. I'm not anybody's offended. I don't think so. But I'm saying, I know that's a hard truth in a way. It is. But I want to tell you, it may be one of the most significant things said. Here's what I want to also remind you. And let's just say this again. I want us to all say it out loud. I'll say it once to get you back on track. God thinks I am the perfect mom for my children. Let's say it together. God thinks I am the perfect mom for my children. I want you to remember that. They do need your smile. They do need that you feel hopeful about the future. She opens her mouth in skillful godly wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue, giving counsel and instruction. She's a wise counselor. I know there's a time period when your kids think you're dumb as a box. You don't know anything. But don't worry, your wisdom's still there. Keep saying it. Keep going over it. Don't drill it and don't be a nag, but you can keep, because it's good stuff. Verse 27, she looks well to how things go in her household. She does not eat the bread of idleness. She's aware of what's going on around her. She's very proactive. My mom was so good at keeping things orderly and fixing meals and stuff around the house. I just thought it all looked easy. It all looked really easy. So when Vanjie and I got married and it got down to doing dishes and stuff like that, and we would talk, well, I'll help, I'll do, but it's like, man, this stuff's hard. Vacuuming and doing, this stuff, I thought it was easy. My mom made it look easy. It's because she was not idle. She didn't just let it build up. She stayed on top of things. Verse 28, her children rise up and call her blessed, happy, prosperous, to be admired. And her husband also, and he praises her, saying things like this: many daughters have done nobly and well, with a strength of character that is steadfast in goodness, but you excel them all. I believe that there will be a day, moms, when your children will brag on you. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but there is a day. You're faithful. Part of the reason you're here this morning even is you're a faithful mom. You're a faithful person. And that faithfulness does have a payday. And it doesn't even matter, if your kid goes way, way off track somewhere in their life, and it's a disappointment to you, and you feel like a failure because of that, because that's how we tend to look at things as parents. You need to remember that God believed you were the perfect mom for that child, no matter kind of what it seems like is going on in their lives. You need to remember that. But you also need to remember that at some time, at some point, somewhere along the way, that child will rise up and bless you. They will. It may be even after you've gone on to your heavenly reward, but they will. So be diligent, persevere, and hopefully it isn't one of those long, hard roads, but hopefully you will even feel it and experience it all along the way. But if not, just be diligent and faithful. God will see to it that you are honored. Verse 30, charm and grace are deceitful, and superficial beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord, reverently worshiping, obeying, serving, and trusting him with awe-filled respect, she shall be praised. I was out of town just for part of the day, and I was coming back, and I stopped at a restaurant because I wasn't going to make it home in time to eat. And it was a little bit more of like a small town restaurant. I was driving through that town. And I actually, while I was waiting for the food and stuff, I had some work. I'd had my little notebook out, and I was writing and doing some stuff and working on some things. And man, it was just loud in there. Just wow, just talking. Just people loud, talking loud. And so I just kind of looked around, not to like try to quiet them down or anything, but I was just like, man, that table over there is just loud. And I looked over and I noticed there's this really, really quite nice looking lady, maybe in her early 30s or something like that was really doing most of the talking. And she was just ratchet jawing, but loud. You could hear the whole restaurant. And I was just having a hard time focusing on my work. I'm going, she might be okay to look at, but she's getting real hard to listen to. This is, and so she just kept just blah, blah, whoever, but no one else, if people started to say something, she'd just dive in. I just started hearing that one voice, blah, 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 blah. And it was just loud and obnoxious. But I finally just kind of drowned it out and tried to keep doing. And that table left. And I was about halfway done with my meal. And it was just like all of a sudden, the place just quieted down. You could hear conversation going on in places. And I thought, man, that woman is a wreck. She was like destroying this place in here with her big mouth running. She may have been pretty, but it's like, I bet you she'd have a hard time finding a good guy because, or at least one who just didn't want to say anything, that she could run that mouth. And it was loud. And beauty really has a whole lot more to do with appearance. Appearance is nice. It's wonderful if God's given you natural beauty and you do the best with it that you can. That's wonderful. But I'm going to tell you, the beauty that comes from within is what really wins the day. It's what really is lasting. It lasts past all the wrinkles and all of this and all of that and all the other. And it's something that is beautiful. And it says, a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. It's wonderful if there's charm and beauty with that. That's a wonderful thing. But the most important thing is fearing the Lord. See, the key is, and here's what I believe the key from this verse is. It's not so much about beauty or lack of beauty or that kind of thing, but the key is knowing that God is who you'll give an account to for your life. Living with an awareness that when you stand before God, He's not going to ask somebody else who you were as a woman or as a wife or as a mother. He's going to talk to you about that. And that comes from with who you are. And it says, the woman who fears the Lord reverently worships, obeys, serves, and trusts Him with awe-filled respect. That's a woman that will be praised. Verse 31, give her of the product of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates of the city. We get to live with the fruit of our labor, is how I read this. In other words, we reap what we sow. Now you say, well, what if my child turns out, seems like in a terrible way? Does that mean I'm reaping what I've sown? We really don't get to make your children get to decide who they become. But the fruit of what you've invested still will bear fruit. The seed of what you've invested in your children will bear fruit in some manner. It may not be the time or the season that you would choose. It may not be the way that you would have chosen it, but it will bear fruit. So moms, I want to say this one more time, and I want you to say it with me, and I want dads, everybody to say this, because I believe it is true, and it's the thing I want you to leave here with, and that is, God thinks I am the perfect mom for my children. Let's say it together. God thinks I am the perfect mom for my children. Please don't forget that. And you can look at somebody else's very compliant child, which all of us have been tempted to do sometimes, and say, now if I had a child like that, Now, if I had a child like that, parenting would be easy. No, maybe, but it's not who God gave you. God gave you the children you have because he believed you would be the best mom